Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dagen McDowell of Fox Business Network, Harold Hamm of Continental Resources, and Governor Kevin Stitt of the state of Oklahoma.
Thank y'all so much. Governor, I apologize, but Harold Hamm gets a little bit longer introduction than you do. Harold Hamm, founder of Continental Resources, pioneer of horizontal drilling and the American energy renaissance, our shepherd to energy independence, energy security, national security, and economic prosperity, champion of ending America's export ban on oil and gas, author also of the new book, which I read over the weekend, Game Changer, our 50-year mission to secure America's energy independence. And then Kevin Stitt, Governor, great to see you. Also, I would call you also a child of Oklahoma, but you were born in Florida. That's right. Unfortunately. No, I'm just joking. But you grew up in Oklahoma as well. You've been the governor of that fantastic, beautiful state since 2019. Before that, you were an entrepreneur. You founded Gateway. You were also a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. But I want to get right to our, reclaiming. Let's start with reclaiming our energy independence, Harold. I'm going to shut up and just sit over here and talk about what has not been discussed today, and that is energy independence and our oil and natural gas business here in the United States. How do we reclaim what we have pretty much lost in the last few years?
Well, thanks, Dagen. We've seen what has come about just this last year with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. What that means not to be independent. It means so much. You can't depend on another country that might be not your friend and use it as a weapon, as has happened there. And thank God, America was, very close to energy independence, probably on a BTU basis with natural gas. We're there. So it was great. We could fill in. Thankfully, it wasn't a real cold winter this winter in Europe, but with all the shipments of LNG, we averted a heck of a disaster. And it's just tremendous what could be done with as a result of horizontal drilling in this country that basically took us from terminal decline, peak production. I think everybody remember all the peakers that was there a few years ago that we'd peaked out and never could get back, and we're just going to decline our production off to the end as it. But one thing happened along the way, and that was horizontal drilling that was pioneered, begun by a few folks, and it changed it all. It basically tripled crude oil production in the U.S., taking it from 4.8 million barrels a day up to 13, and quadrupling the production of natural gas. So it's just been a wonderful thing and a great ride. And so this book, Game Changer, that's exactly what horizontal drilling was. It changed the world, changed the United States, and really changed people's lives all over. But to me, it means even more than that. When you think about national security, and particularly with the position that we have here in the United States, it means peace to our country. And with what happened this last year, actually means somewhat peace in the world to a lot of our allies.
To be able to support them and,
Yes.
and come to their aid and even rescue. Governor, how do you see, from your perspective, our energy security right now?
Well, I think Harold's right. We're so fortunate in the U.S. to have so many natural resources, and we all want a reliable, affordable energy grid. And that's really a national security issue. You're seeing it, like he mentioned, with the invasion of Russia and Ukraine and what's happening in Europe. And we need to meet the resources and the demands of American people with our own resources. And so I love telling Oklahoma's story because Oklahoma has a great innovative story. I mean, pioneers like Harold Hamm, and over 100 years, we are the energy state. And so just to give everybody some facts, we're like number 5 oil production in the entire country, number 4 natural gas production. I'm so proud of our oil and gas industry, and it's so important to our energy security. But we're also number 3 in wind energy. We are a feedstock, natural gas is a feedstock for hydrogen, so we're leaning heavily into hydrogen right now as well. And when you look at the price of electricity for our consumers, something like 11 out of the last 14 quarters, Oklahoma had the most affordable electricity cost. And CEOs from around the world, a reliable, affordable grid is so important right now. We pay about 1/3 of what they do in Europe for utility prices. And so it's just amazing when we have an all-of-the-above approach and we talk about the need for oil and natural gas, as well as renewables as well. Hydrogen, like I said, we're leaning in. I'm partnering with Louisiana and Arkansas to bring a hydrogen hub to Oklahoma right now as well.
Harold, you were talking about the peakers in your book. You point out that Jimmy Carter in 1977 said, oil and gas are running out, and the focus was on stopping demand, and how you proved all of that wrong. And you also write about energy poverty, growing up in energy poverty, meaning, or energy insecurity. And energy insecurity, I remember it with the oil embargo of the 1970s, and the fact that we got to a place where we didn't have that. And with the crackdown on drilling and exploration and leasing in the last 2.5 years, are you worried we're going in the wrong direction?
Well, it is going in the wrong direction. We've seen some terrible policies down through the years, and the Fuel Use Act of 1977 was one of those. Mm-hmm. It was horrible. Believe it or not, it mandated 100% use of coal in power generation and forbid using clean burning natural gas. And we warned them then that we're going to have acid rain, and sure enough we did. Mm-hmm. All those things. And was also testifying to the fact that, given the chance, we could produce a lot of natural gas, but they couldn't have it both ways. It's basically they had their foot on our throat with controlling the price of gas, keeping it artificially low, particularly interstate gas, getting it for nothing. But we've seen bad things happen on both sides. Nixon, I never will forget, when he put crude oil under price controls when it went from $3.75 a barrel to $4. He thought it was getting plumb out of hand. But we followed on down through time, and we're seeing it right now. When you just arbitrarily take 26% of the U.S. landmass off the table and about 35% of the productive capacity, and expect everybody to produce all the oil and gas we need. It's difficult. The industry had to adjust, took about a year to do that, to get back to drilling and going. And, we saw it fall back in production and both oil and gas. So it went the wrong way. So we need good policy. We need good international, good national policy going forward on energy for the future. And
Governor, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, I testified in 2019 before Congress, and this is something that I don't think the American people really stop and think about this. But back in 2019, we had Russian tankers full of LNG coming and delivering fuel to the East Coast, instead of allowing clean burning natural gas from Oklahoma, Texas, Pennsylvania through pipeline development, because they're shutting down it's not like the people didn't need the natural gas on the East Coast, but instead of getting it domestically, we were importing it. That doesn't make sense to the American people because of just some, so that's why we're so focused on permitting reform right now. It takes us 6 years longer than India, China, even the EU, to European Union to do any kind of permitting. And so we've got to get our arms around it. I think there's a bipartisan effort right now to really address permitting reform, and I know the governors are speaking into this and trying to get some momentum, even on wind development and hydrogen development. You're going to need permitting reform to get transmission lines up. And so we have to have an honest conversation about that as well. Again, just to meet the needs of Americans. And we all want lower gas prices and we all want lower utility prices. And so let's have some honest conversations as a country about that.
Well, you worked mightily for how many years on lifting the export ban?
Oh, well, it was, everybody said it'd take 3 years, but we got it done in about 15 months. But, you know, it was 35, 40 trips to Washington, D.C., and 175 meetings. So we got it done, but it certainly wasn't easy. But, it's kind of funny, we put it in a omnibus spending bill, so we got to pass. Nothing they'd rather do than spend money, right?
Exactly.
So,
Especially in the omnibus where they...
yeah.
Explain that to everybody, Harold. So the U.S. was banned from shipping or selling our crude or anything overseas.
Yeah, and it had been around 40 years since Nixon era, the era of scarcity. Back then, they thought we ought to hoard everything, and it's a totally wrong approach. You can't have a good, vibrant industry if you can't do international trade. And so it'd been around 40 years, very archaic, and it had to change. And it made sense, to change it. But, you've always got the big division of interest in Congress and government, so it took a lot of doing to get it done.
Are you worried that there's a push, and has been, to reverse it?
There's been talk about it, but it'd be so detrimental. I think even those pushing against it knew that they shouldn't do that.
And in Oklahoma, our natural gas, we have pipelines going down to the Gulf Coast that then turns into LNG and gets shipped to our European allies, gets shipped to our friends around the world. So it's so important. I mean, we're lucky that we have the resources to meet our own needs here in the U.S., but other countries, not so much. They're having to import, and then you're seeing the disruption that happens. And that reminds me back, Oklahoma has a long history of helping our allies. I love this story. Back during World War II, there was a secret mission. There wasn't enough, with the disruption, the UK did not have enough oil. And so we sent 42 of our oil and gas workers on a secret mission to the Sherwood Forest. We drilled 100 wells in a 1-year contract. Okay, can you imagine doing that in today's world? So we drilled 100 wells. We took it from 300 barrels a day to 3,000 to help end World War II. And we just signed an MOU partnership on energy security with the UK. And so we have to be able to supply and help our friends, meet their needs as well.
It's not just prosperity. Harold, it's also with the energy, we call it the energy renaissance, you do, the natural gas renaissance. It led to the United States having the lowest emissions per capita since at least 1950.
It is. I mean, you look at this entire industry today, it's been totally transformed by horizontal drilling. From where it started just fledgling, nothing, to where it's at today, 95% of the drilling rigs are drilling horizontally, and it's proven that we have over 100-year supply of natural gas, close to 100, maybe 150, 200. We knew it. We had a lot of gas. I'm a geologist. It's ubiquitous. It's kind of everywhere. But we do have a lot of it, and we're able to ship that around the world now. For instance, a friend of mine told me that they shipped about 630 cargoes last winter to Europe. One cargo can heat 1 million homes for a month. One. That company only has 10% of the LNG business. So you can imagine how much LNG we shipped abroad. And the governor's right. We've lowered emissions with clean burning natural gas in this country almost 40%.
What else can we do, though, on just natural gas or exporting the technology that you've developed? And because the world, I mean, this so much talk about zero, net zero by what, 2050. This year, coal consumption is it's the highest it's ever been in world history. This year, globally.
Yeah. Well, what they've done, you know, not they, basically China, India, they basically had the technology building these power plants with coal that came from that Fuel Use Act back there, and basically made the most of it. They copy everything. And so when you're building almost one power plant a day in Southeast Europe, you know, the emissions keep going up. And those countries, now they call them third world countries, so they include them in the Paris Accord. Well, I call them anything but that. And so, you know, let me tell you, these emissions are global. You know, you can't just stop what we're doing here and continue what they're doing over there. We have the ability to ship a lot of LNG to the rest of the world. And, you know, I think that'll happen, a lot of that will happen over the next few years.
Governor?
What's the question?
No. What needs to change well, you control, well, you're the governor of Oklahoma, but what do you think needs to change in federally to make that happen?
I think we just need to take our foot off the brake a little bit and just allow American companies to innovate and meet the needs, whatever it is. We have an all of the above approach in Oklahoma, and but you can't have an honest conversation if you don't include talking about the base load of natural gas and how important that is to an affordable, reliable energy grid. And back in you remember the solar or polar vortex that happened? I think it was in 21. It was just unseasonably cold all throughout the Midwest. And Texas had a lot of rolling blackouts. Oklahoma's grid stayed up really, really strong. Normally, this is a great example. We're normally about 40% wind energy, about 40% natural gas. That's the makeup of our electricity in Oklahoma. About less than 10% coal. And but during that vortex, that polar vortex, all of our wind turbines were frozen. Even some of the gas wellhead was frozen. And my point is, we needed more of everything. Coal in Oklahoma. And every time I talk to small, groups of high school kids and that kind of stuff, I explain kind of when you flip your light switch on where that comes from. And if we wouldn't have had coal in Oklahoma, it went from like less than 10% of our electricity usage to over 50% because we were stuck on a couple other outlets. And I said, if we wouldn't have had coal in Oklahoma during that 2-week period, you couldn't have watched TikTok for 2 solid weeks, okay? And it's funny, but it's very important to understand how important a reliable, affordable grid is. And that's why you have to have this base load, which is really natural gas, because, wind and some of these other alternatives are a little bit cyclical. Solar, we have solar potential in Oklahoma, a lot of solar. We love all of it. We have more electric vehicle charging stations per capita than any other state, level 3 charging stations. But you have to talk about natural gas or you're not having an honest conversation.
You have a minute, Mr. Hamm. I'll give you the final word. Game Changer is your book. I encourage people to buy it and read it. It's a spicy read.
Well, it's been a
And I mean that, it is spicy.
It's been a bestseller. I think you can see why. When you write a book, you don't know about the readability until you're done. You tell the facts, you tell it the way it is, and all the research goes into it. But until you're done, you don't know about the readability. But thank God it turned out where you enjoy reading it. So that's a big bonus. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. Somebody had to tell the story. I didn't want to do it, but it needed to be told holistically from beginning to end on just what happened, and about all the disparagers along the way, about the Russians initially sought to disparage our industry, put us down, because they wanted to protect what they had.
Yep.
They didn't want to see it go away, and so it's pretty spicy.
It is spicy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Harold Hamm, Governor Kevin Stitt. Thank you so much. That does it for us.